Assalamualaikum, everyone. We're back again with my next podcast, and I have a very special guest, another very special guest, and I've been very excited to have her on. She is Camilla Halimuddin, and she has uh, been able to make it for our podcast today, made some time just for us. I'm so excited. And please introduce yourself to everyone.
All right. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me, Heidi. I'm a huge fan of the show. I am a seasoned HR professional. I have a degree in psychology and a master's in industrial relations and managing human resources. But above all, I would say I'm a passionate people champion. And when I'm not at work, I am a operations manager to two little children who inspire me daily.
How old are these kids?
So my son is 7 and my daughter will be 4 next month.
Oh my God. Wow. Leila, that's a active age.
Yes.
So yeah, I just very happy that you're here because I know how busy you are. Okay, and so we're going to be talking about this very important topic. Let me just tell you how this topic came about. Okay, I've had a few friends and family, clients even. They come over to talk about stress at work. And ultimately, the stress comes from upper management, the boss, and sometimes it is so bad they come over in tears. And it's so bad that it's not just like they want to quit. They love their job, but they just cannot be in the environment that the office has, and that it's so depressing for them that they actually feel they should quit.
Oh.
Yeah. You ever come across that kind of situation?
Heidi, thank you so much for this topic. It's one, leadership is something that impacts all of us. And there are going to be great leaders in our lives. There are ones that we remember that uplifted us. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, there are also going to be leaders in our life that have styles that really do not work with the teams that they're leading. And one thing that I want to be super mindful about is not all of these leaders have bad intentions.
Yeah, they probably don't see, they think this is the way to go.
Absolutely. Some of these leaders are completely oblivious to how they're showing up, how they're impacting their people's mental health, physical health, team morale, team dynamics. Yeah. And I think that's just really sad as well. Yes. They just have no idea that this is going on. And at the same time, I want to acknowledge that we are a non-confrontational society.
Oh, yeah.
So people don't also feel they can have it in themselves to speak up and say, hey, please don't do that. Or the way you are coming across is really offensive.
We just don't feel we have that space to do that, right? I think dari dulu juga, even as students, in the past, to ask questions, to say something's not right, we just don't. It's just not brought up that way, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hierarchical society. So there can be a lot of discomfort from speaking up, especially to figures of authority. But what I'm learning is that if you're going to make sure that we have happiness at work, that we have peace of mind at work, and we really need to speak up. We need to stand up for ourselves.
Before you go on about leadership styles, there are also situations where the staff, when they're too vocal, for whatever reason, it's like, of course, the boss ends up getting stressed as well, right? So then they end up going, putting it heavy on them because they also end up, they're also testing the upper authority. You get that situation as well, right?
Absolutely.
It's such as a boss, as a, someone in charge, it is not easy, I would imagine. You wanna be there, but you don't want to baby them, and then they step all over you, and then in a way, sometimes you just have to maintain that order, you know. So what we're talking about today is if I'm a boss and I didn't know I'm being this way, what are the things that you can tell us about this kind of toxic management, toxic leadership style?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about three different types of leadership styles
Okay.
that can be detrimental to workplace dynamics.
Yeah.
And the first of which is the ghost leader.
Mhm.
So the ghost leader might as well be a hologram. They are physically present, but emotionally they are just not there, and they typically don't give feedback to their people. They don't coach their people in terms of how to improve, how to do better. They really kind of don't have relationships with their teams.
Do they care about the task though? I mean, is it important that it's done correctly?
So they want results.
That's about it. That's it.
In terms of how, in terms of building relationships with people at work, not so much. They're not, not necessarily putting in the effort.
Oh, right. So people relation is just not there.
No,
not high on the list, basically.
Absolutely not. And typically people feel invisible in these teams. I once had a colleague who had a ghost leader, and she pretty much said to me, I don't even know if my boss knows what I do for work.
Wow.
Eventually, the message, the unspoken message here is you don't matter. The work you do doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Imagine
why would I be
that way?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm just imagining like myself with a boss. I probably will not do the job. I probably will just not do it.
Nope. And eventually, people in these teams find the fastest bare minimum way to do the job, and then they clock out, they disengage.
Yeah, I do recall this girl I met ages ago. She was saying in her workplace, she doesn't work there anymore, but she was saying she was the only one staff who did everything. And the boss would just come in, lecture about how lucky you are to be here. Other places, they will not give you this sort of whatever. And she's just a kid. Not even a kid. She's in her 20s, right? And he treats her like she's dumb or something, like, because he knows she doesn't have that much experience. So it's like, you see, without us, you'd be in some difficult place, and she's like, what is this, So, and he doesn't even tell her how she's doing, a good job, when in fact she runs the whole place, and she tells herself, without me, where would you be? This kind of thing. So there's a lot of silence, and she can't say anything back to him because she knows if I say anything, he's just going to go bonkers, So is this what we're talking about? Ghost leadership.
So that also sounds a lot like a ghost leader, but there's also an element of, I would say, a fear-based leader. And we're going to be talking about the fear-based leader in a moment.
Okay, how much I'm threatening and stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we talk about the fear-based leader, there's another leadership style that I want to share about, which is the micromanager.
Right.
And typically the micromanager, I'm pretty sure we've all met probably one in our lives.
Yeah.
The micromanager is someone that nitpicks at even the smallest detail, right?
Everything.
They want to oversee absolutely everything, right? And I'm sure, the micromanagers out there that are listening might say, I just want to make sure the job is done well.
Super responsible, right?
But, let's call it what it is. It's really control issues. Yeah. They just need to control everything, and that's not necessarily healthy for teams. And that is such a huge killer for innovation. That is such a huge killer for creativity. And eventually people will also disengage. They will do the absolute bare min, and then they're out.
True. But does it also create some kind of fear? Like, I'm not going to go ahead because he's got to approve it every single step.
Yeah, it just killed innovation.
Yeah, you just
And
don't want to move forward. Like you have to wait because the micromanager needs to hear of everything and do everything.
absolutely, absolutely.
So you gotta have a very good and creative micromanager if you want to be this way. It makes it slightly better. Better, let's say I'm a micromanager, I know nothing. That's hard, no?
Oh,
That would be the worst.
that is absolutely the worst.
Like I'm just so insecure. I need to show I've got power. So control, control, control. Padahal apa kan dikontrolnya nih sebenarnya?
Exactly. And it sends the message to the team that I don't trust you.
Yeah,
And trust in leadership is everything.
it is when I think about it. Yeah, you gotta trust your people, right?
Absolutely. And trust is a two-way thing. And I'm going to circle back to trust.
Yeah.
But what I will definitely say is right now there's a lot of speak around emotional currency.
Apa tuh?
It's something called emotional currency, and it's basically the leaders who are able to tap into their people's emotions, high emotional EQ.
Yeah.
They're the leaders that are ultimately going to be successful because they acknowledge those emotions, they know how to work with those emotions, as opposed to the leaders that are like,
yeah,
no,
true.
You keep your emotions to yourself.
Like, take it somewhere where tell it to Oprah, that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last type of leadership that I wanted to share about is the fear-based leader.
Mhm.
And as you were saying, absolutely, a fear-based leader because they're leading from a place of fear of failure, fear of disappointing them, over leading from a place of purpose.
Right.
And typically they operate in threats. They say, you don't do this, or, jaga your rice bowl, jaga your employment.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Again, this kind of leadership absolutely kills engagement. In the short term, it might be really effective. They get the results because people are so afraid of messing up. But in the long run, at what cost are these results? And I always say leadership is such a privilege because you are not only shaping the results, you're shaping the people behind those results.
Yeah. Actually, it's a big task. It's not just do the job.
Absolutely. It's an amana, right? It's a huge trust.
Building the people, making sure this and that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It goes beyond the office, really.
Absolutely. Because, going back to the fear-based leader, in the long run, they are really damaging a team's morale. They are damaging the team's mental health, and ultimately team performance.
Yeah, because I feel like most of the time, the ones that really feel so down are the good ones. The actual ones who want to work, I mean, if I didn't care and I'm a staff, and I have been one of those, I don't care. Like you may lead however, but someone like myself, if I didn't care about the job, it wouldn't really affect me. And then the work quality pun in the seberapa so it's just useless, that kind of leadership. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I would say is, if there are any leaders listening out there, this is not intended as a bash session at all, but rather an awakening or raising the awareness. The first thing to really ask yourself is, how do people feel after they come out from a meeting with me? Do they feel uplifted? Do they feel empowered? Or do they feel utterly bashed and demotivated?
Exactly.
And I think it's so important to start asking yourself these questions, because remember, leadership isn't about perfection. Leadership is about growth. Right? And once you know better, you can do better. And it's also about listening. I really aspire. I wish there would be more leaders out there that would listen. I once had a leader that said, we have one mouth and 2 ears.
For a reason. Yeah.
We should use them in that proportion.
Yeah.
So it's really about listening to your people, and building that relationship. Earlier, I said that trust is everything in leadership. And when I think about trust, or the way I like to think about trust, is going back to the trust equation that Stephen Covey made popular way back when.
Yeah.
So in his equation, trust is credibility, which is knowing being a subject matter expert, right? Knowing your area of expertise. So having that credibility, reliability, which is, if you say something, you do what you say, and you say what you do. And intimacy. So intimacy is really just another word for like how they build the relationship. And those three elements over self-orientation. So if your self-orientation is your agenda, right? What's in it for you?
Agenda. Okay.
Yeah. And if your agenda or your self-orientation is really high, your trust is going to be low. Because people are going to look at you and just say, well, they're only doing it for themselves.
Oh, got it.
Because there's something in it for them.
Oh.
But if your self-orientation is really low, so you're not doing it for your own good, you're doing it for the good of the community, the good of the team, the good of the organization, you're going to have a better trust.
Yeah. Your vibe becomes, it's different.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, people can feel what you're like. You can't pretend. There's no way you can lie. I'm a good person, but I don't feel it. I always find that really fascinating, how you don't need to open your mouth. We can feel it. We can see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they say communication, 7% of communication is coming out from your mouth and the words you say. Most of the time people are reading body language. Does this person say what they're doing, do what they say? People really look out for that.
Yeah, the action. Yeah, it's true. Action speaks louder than words.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And okay. It's a scenario. Okay. And this is not related to anyone, okay? But let's say there's a boss. This boss has it all. Okay, they're very privileged because of their position. And they take advantage of it. In terms of benefits, just using up the company's benefits for whatever. And then on top of all that, the staff, they feel like they're always at fault. If anything goes wrong, it is never that boss's fault. And there seems to be the way it goes is, something goes wrong, they're going to pick someone as a scapegoat. You've ever heard that happening? And it's obvious the staff cannot be at fault, because ultimately the boss has final say. So what kind of leadership is this, where they end up not taking responsibility, but how in the beginning it's like, responsible, giving all this instruction, but at the end, if anything happens wrong, it's like, hey, you did that. You. I mean, how should these bosses tackle this issue?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, we do see that kind of style of leadership.
Macam naik kepala, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And really what that is a failure to take accountability.
That's the word, accountability.
And typically, bosses that role model this behavior send the message that it's always everyone else's fault. And because they are not role modeling accountability, that will trickle down into their teams, into the organization. People will also
like, not me.
Exactly. Because leadership at the end of the day is energy, and energy just flows down.
Sure, yeah.
If you're kind of demonstrating an energy where you're not taking accountability, you're finger pointing, you're putting the blame on others, that is also going to trickle down.
Yeah, for sure. And then what have you, right? The whole organization just becomes I don't know.
Absolutely. You kill the morale. You kill the morale of the
Yeah.
people. People really will not want anything to do with this organization. There won't be the pride for these organizations. And one thing I'm noticing more and more is our parents' generation had lifelong gigs, right? They worked at the same company all their life, and they had so much pride to work for those companies. And I feel like the generation, or my generation, so I'm an elder millennial.
What is that? Elder millennial. Okay, whatever.
Show my age there.
Okay.
I think a lot of us are tending to move on to different companies, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think we also define success differently to the previous generation. I think that, before it was really about how many people you have, how many staff do you have under you, how many cars do you have,
Right.
What is your title, what is your salary, whereas
the looks of it all,
the looks of it all. Whereas I do think people of my generation are defining success very differently.
In what way is that?
For us, success looks like, do we have the freedom to choose how we spend our time?
Right.
Do we have flexibility? Do we have time for recreation, time for joy, time for, sport, health?
Yeah. It's true. I have a friend. We graduated together, in fact, and she's looking for a job. And then she decides to she gets offered this job and she felt no. I said, why not? The hours are just too crazy. I said, okay, great. Don't take it. Then she took a job. Pay's not so great, but she has flexibility.
Fantastic.
And she just loves that. And I said, yeah, why not? Why should you? I mean, I get it. We're not living in the old times where you break your bones working, But that's the thing. Coming back to bosses, right? Bosses do not necessarily get that. Especially if it's like the owner of a company, board of director. They're not going to understand what is all this, enjoyment in life. Like, let's just get down to it, make more money, I feel it depends on what kind of, where you work. Macam kalau government, let's say, nobody really owns the government, right? So if you're hardworking by nature, okay, so your leadership is going to be like on, but if say your leadership is very chilled, laid back, you can be on because things will roll on anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if I own the company, I don't want to rest because I really can't afford to rest.
Absolutely. So I will say that personality does play a role into the type of leadership that we see. And indeed, going back to the psychology of the person, they bring that to the role, right? So they will bring that to the organization. And that's why leadership is important, because you are then entrusted, you are shaping how people experience work. You can make or break. And, it's really true that there's a wonderful saying that people don't leave jobs. People leave people. People leave bosses.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, no.
And, I get it. Like with board of directors, shareholders, their number one task is to make sure that a company is profitable.
Yeah, cover every areas.
That's their number one KPI. However, companies that are super successful, there's a lot of research suggesting that if you are taking care of your employees, they are taking care of the bottom line results.
That's true.
So people that feel trusted, in control, are engaged. And then they're engaged and motivated because they feel they're being well taken care of. They want to take care of the company's bottom line. They want to create value for these companies. Yeah. And I think it was Simon Sinek that said, people that feel that they're being taken care of will always go over and above to meet their KPIs.
That's absolutely right. We can apply this to government as well, in terms of this is the thing, okay, the way I view government, because I used to work as a Ministry of Education. Okay. And I didn't enjoy it because it's just not my thing. Okay. And I just felt so lazy, but a lot of people try to like encourage, like, you're good at this, you can do this, all this kind of thing. But I was like, nah. But at the end, what's my point now? But I feel like the in government, the leadership style ito, at the end of the day, the staff needs to care. You know what I mean? Like, you could be a great leader, a bad leader, or whatever kind of leader. But at the end, orang bawah is the one that ultimately you're going to decide, whether you want to, be the best or be the worst.
Absolutely. I used to think that leadership was just about titles and having people report to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could not be more wrong. And my new view to leadership is it's really about taking care of people in our charge.
No matter where you are, right?
No matter where you are. So you are the head of a household. You have, drivers, amas that look after your household. How do you take care of them?
Yeah.
How do you show care to them?
Yeah.
They are looking after your family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it really starts at home. Yeah,
that's right. Oh my God, yeah, you're right. Because if you're gonna be like a horrid boss, chances are you're a horrid employer at home as well. That's how I see it too. You can be two different people, two different places.
It's interesting you say that, Heidi. Because I'm also seeing and observing a lot of people compartmentalize, and who they are at work can sometimes be very different to who they are in their personal lives.
Really?
And I think it's so interesting. Yeah.
You know of someone this way?
There are many people that choose to compartmentalize. Work is work, home is home. And that's okay. That's just how they operate. Me personally, I always value being true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I try and do every day is make decisions that are in alignment with my values.
Yeah.
And I think that's, as long as I can do that, that is my happiness. Like making sure that the decisions I make, be they at work, be they in the home, are always in alignment with the values of my heart.
Oh, that's cool. What about stress? Yeah, like being a boss or being a staff, working in general. Okay, there's stress, and so let's say there is a good boss, okay, very caring, whatever, very kind, but one fine day, it's just not a good time for this person, and the leadership just goes out the window. That's possible, right?
Of course. So, leaders are also human. And they're not going to be perfect all the time. And leadership isn't perfection, it's growth, right? So as long as they can stand up and say, hey, that was me not at my best. I shouldn't have said those things, or I behaved in a way that's out of line. I'm sorry. They have that humility. They're able to put their ego aside.
Yeah.
And for me, Heidi, I think that is a huge, huge green flag. Leaders that are able to put their ego aside, right, and say, I messed up, or I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to do better. And then they behave better. Those are absolute green flag.
Yeah. Is there any risk at being too personal though? Because I know if at work, especially men, they don't want to come off sounding like they're bringing their baggage from outside of work into the office. So it's like, however, like you know what I mean? That boundary. Is it okay for a boss to, let's say, for example, a boss is undergoing some kind of marital issues, very unhappy at home, and then they come home and they become some kind of grouch for a couple of weeks, and they realize, oh my God, I have to tell them something that something is up with me. Would you advise, like, it's okay to mention getting through? Is it going to be okay?
That's such a great question, Heidi. And one of the things I would say to that is I really appreciate it when leaders demonstrate vulnerability.
Mm.
Because then they send the message to their teams that we are human. It's okay to mess up, but we can be strong and we can be there for each other.
Mm.
And that also, I would say, definitely helps trust, right? But not ever. I want to also say that, the gender stereotypes are strong here.
Oh.
And so we have a wave of boys and men that feel they've got to be strong and silent and,
Oh, wow.
strong silent types that everything's okay outwardly, when inwardly it's chaos.
Yeah.
And they may or may not have someone to be talking to. They may or may not have a healthy outlet for those emotions. Personally, I aspire to see more workplaces that are where vulnerability is demonstrated, where men, women are talking about issues to their leaders that are impacting them, so that we can better take care of each other.
Yeah, because sometimes when I hear from people going through rough patches, and then on top of that, their boss scolds them because they're just not performing optimal, So, but the boss doesn't know. Then they'll be like, you gotta, do this, do this. So they start to crash and burn, and just goes downhill from there. So if the staff can see the boss is able to express, I've got issues right now, then orang bawah pun perhaps can also understand, oh, they can relate to me if there's anything. Interesting.
Absolutely. So it's about creating a relationship where we're able to share with each other in a safe space. And really, the magical word here is psychological safety. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's really psychological safety allows for people to be honest about what's going on without fear of consequences.
Yeah.
And they know that no matter what, their team or their boss will have their back, right?
Yeah.
They're going through a rough patch. They have trusted people that they share it with at work.
Oh.
And because they've come to the table and said, hey, I'm going through a thing, then on the other side, they can say, what do you need? Do you need to take time off? Do you need, are you speaking to someone? Can we check in? We want to make sure that you are going to be able to be your best.
Oh.
We want to give you that space and time to recover.
Yeah.
But they won't be able to do that if you don't come and say, hey, I'm going through a thing.
Exactly. That's true. Like, especially if it's situations where it's really bad. Like, they need time out, like kind of space.
Absolutely.
Another situation, which I've heard, the staff has issues, not bad issue, just kind of like, I don't want to work here anymore. I'm not sure I want to work here. I think I want to work somewhere else. This, I think. And then they start causing issue just to test the waters, whether or not this is the place I want to stay, should I go, blah, 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 this kind of thing. I mean, what's a leader to do with this kind of person?
That's a great question. And my aspiration leader would have a conversation like, hey, let's talk. Let's catch up for coffee. Let's make it super informal, heart to heart. What's going on?
I mean, as a boss, you would bother to do that.
I think that's the most important thing to do, because if I'm going to be able to support my people, I need to know what's going on with them.
Yeah, why I'm saying bother to do that, it sounds so hard, right? Because I understand, I mean, kalau sudah boss, banyak lagi kerja, banyak lagi orang kena manage, and then you get this one person who is now like trying to get so much attention and just wants to leave. Like, most cases, I can imagine you're out. Like, okay, here, you want to leave? No problem. Bye. At some point, sometimes that's also necessary, isn't it?
So, once we've had a conversation, two things could happen, right? One, and this is best case scenario.
Okay.
We flip the switch. We've, taken time to understand what they're going through. A conversation is had. We can allocate resources to help them until they've gone through the thing, and then they come back motivated and refreshed to be even better. But as you said, right, there's another thing that could happen, and they just continue to spiral, right?
Yeah.
Like you've made the time, you've taken time to understand what they're going through, and you've given them some guidance, some suggestions, and they just continue to spiral.
Yeah.
We also have our own limits, and it's also important to make sure they're aware that, hey, if you feel this way, let's give you a date. Like if you continue to feel this way, then maybe this place is not a right fit for you.
Right.
It's important that you are in a place that you are inspired to be and you are happy to go to work. We spend 8 hours of our working day in an office. That can be even more time than we spend with our own families. So it's so important that if I'm going to be spending that much time with my colleagues, I better be making sure that I am happy at that workplace.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is worth to check in with each and every one of the staff, in fact. Because, in the past, for myself, I used to think, it's just one me. If I disappear, who cares? That kind of feeling because of just not happy being wherever. And I can just imagine, like, when I remember people, when they come and talk about jobs, work, I just say, do you want to work there? I mean, simple as that. For me, it's like, you're not happy, just leave, But in fact, when after talking with you, you want to just see, do they support you, because it makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I was working, now that I recall back, when I was resigning, ako nang kan resign kan to. But I remember there's so many blocks before resigning. So you have to see this person, they go, and they try to bring you back. Like, at the end when they saw it was over with me, I remember one of the chicos, they were saying, "What would your mom say?" And then what? My mom.
Emotional blackmail.
my mom. But in fact, it kind of worked because I didn't tell my mom I was going to quit. So that made me think, and I thought, but I did anyway. So you know what I mean? It's like some places they really don't want you to leave, and they'll try anything to keep you. Which when I think of it now, I mean that's nice. That's nice. That they want you to continue.
I think it's great that they have all those controls in place, but are they also putting in effort to make sure that you are happy at work?
I think they did. In my time, they really did whatever I asked. I want to go there. I want to work here. I want to try that. But they did, And I was like, I cannot stand another day. Another day. So when I think of it now, when people ask me, why'd you leave? Why do you quit? You're doing so, your education officer, whatever. And I was like, nothing bad. Actually, nothing bad at all, So for me, it's like, it's nice if you can make a decision and you're still happy. Yeah, it's not a bad situation and you left. It's more like
it just didn't align with your values. You wanted flexibility, and it didn't give you that flexibility, and that's okay.
Just dying, basically. But yeah, when I think of it, no, there was nothing bad at all. It's just me not wanting that life.
And that's also okay.
Yeah. So I have to acknowledge the leaders, orang bawahan ni can always say stuff about people, but my experience leaving the government, it was good. They were very, very nice. And at the end, when I was signing off, so supportive. They were saying, what are you going to do after this? I said, start my business, whatever. And they're like, oh, wow, good luck with that. Like all the best, because it's easy doing business. But, we're supporting you, And I don't even know these people because in the ministry, and I'm like, because I used to think, I want to do this, but I know people are going to think it's stupid, But they're like, wow, the one that managed to get away. Good job. You'd be surprised. People are very supportive, in fact,
Yeah.
I was happy to leave, which is good. So, yeah, back to leadership. I agree with how leaders are not 100% all the time brilliant. They themselves go up and down, especially when the stress comes in.
Absolutely.
Hmm. And I remember one of my friends, right? Yeah, stress pasal bosnya. It was like jahat bosnya, you know. Tapi when we look further, it's like you have your boss's stress, but the boss has another boss's stress, and they've got another higher stress. Like, it is stress all the way.
See the energy just
Ah,
trickle down and flowing.
yeah. How do they break it
How
then?
do you break the
Yeah,
cycle?
where do they break it though?
Such a great question. And really, what it is for someone in that chain to wake up and make a decision to do something differently, to say,
Yeah.
today, I am not going to give the stress I get to my people. Today, I'm going to shield them from that stress. And we're going to do things differently in our space. It takes some unlearning. It also takes courage, but you are literally one decision away from creating that life for your teams.
It can be a beautiful place wherever you're working. Because I remember this friend of mine, she was saying there was a boss change. So she was saying, oh, the first boss was brilliant. They can feel.
Yeah.
Like the first boss was so into spirituality. The boss made sure that, you know, everyone's moving together, you know, this kind of thing. And very caring, and they can feel it. When the boss changed, it was like, no, none of this, you know, caring stuff, none of this, are you okay? None, the one you were saying. And the tears, which I thought, I have never cried in the office before, you know. Personally, that's why I thought, how bad must it be for you to end up crying? You know, so I'm just thinking, this is psychological, you know, attack. Because you're not physically being undercut.
No, but, you know, bosses can have a huge impact on our mental health.
Oh, mental health.
You know, and
totally.
There's a lot of people out there that very much equate how they're doing at work with their self-worth. Which I think you should never ever do.
Oh.
Never ever equate someone else's ability or inability to gauge your value. You determine your value.
Right.
And because they then give that power or they tie their self-worth to a job title, salary, to material things, when these things get threatened or are called into question, their self-worth is also then impacted. And of course, there are going to be tears.
Yeah, because I remember this person I know, she loves her job. Loves it. I was thinking, why the hell do you love your job so much? But yeah, she's like one of these kind of passionate people at work. So yeah. I said I ended up giving her some advice, which was what did I say to her? I said, I mean, after all the talking, it was still upsetting for her. You see, so I go, kau bukan menteri, so don't stress yourself out so much. We're normal employees. Just get the job done, happily do the hours, and do your best and leave. You know, that's what I can say to her, because at the end of the day, it's like we mustn't be crying until late hours thinking about the stupid boss. You know, I was like, the boss has other issues, too. So I think what this person, my friend, was saying was she always hoped that this boss could wake up. You know, like, can someone tell this boss to just stop it? You know, just stop doing that. You know, but nobody dares.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because people sometimes refer to monster bosses, right?
Monster bosses.
That, you know, they think they're all powerful. I mean, they think that, you know, the minute they arrive to the office, someone should run to the elevator, press a button, so they don't have to wait a second for the elevator doors to open. But those bosses are enabled. They're not born. No one is born thinking they're entitled to all of that. Those bosses are enabled. We've allowed them we've allowed that behavior to carry on. And really what it takes is just one person to say, no, do it yourself, or no, or excuse you. Do you know that how you're showing up is impacting an entire team?
Wow.
And it takes one person with a lot of courage
Yeah.
to just say, to have that conversation.
Put your foot down.
And that boss might not even realize how they're showing up, how they're impacting their team. And maybe it just takes one conversation for them to wake up and do things differently. But we should always give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if we've not had a conversation with them.
Yeah. But what if they do realize it's intentional, just to create that fear? Can they change?
Then the choice is with them, right? It's up to them. Because if they are aware how they are coming across and they still choose to behave in that way, then it's on them. Then we should be coming at them and saying,
yes,
we'd like to
just snap out of it. Can it? Knock it off.
Yeah. And if, they're not being held accountable by a company policy or a higher person in the organization, then I would say you may want to rethink your employment, because no place is worth your mental health.
Yeah. That's why the one young suffering on it with this kind of boss. It's like, how does this kind of person reach that level? I don't know. Do you know? They reach that level when in fact nobody likes them,
That's that is absolutely an observation we have seen. I believe that they operated in a time where their strengths were highly valued. So perhaps they have strengths in networking. Perhaps
something outstanding in them.
They did something great, right? In one area. And that was something that was really valued in that organization in that time. So and then they rose up the ranks because of those things. But now, like I said, now what's being valued is emotional intelligence. We want leaders who are able to manage, care about their people.
Yeah.
And I would say it's an awakening. I would say we're working with a more woke workforce.
Woke.
And, these are the values that the workforce look for. And if you're not showing up with those values, you are not going to do well in the court of public opinion.
Salamat to. Jahat-jahat ato. You know what I mean?
Time of tahan pukul is over.
Yeah, it's like nobody cares anymore. Like, I'm out of here if you're gonna treat me like this. Goodbye. Cuma tu betul. Especially the younger generation. I mean, the older will see the younger as dah tahan lasak dorang ni, like dah tahan pukul sikit-sikit lari dia. But the younger generation are seeing it as, you can't treat me like that. I'm a human.
Indeed, we're seeing a generational difference in the workplace. And you can see the values of the different generations and how they play out, and also the communication styles. And it's really interesting to see them kind of jive together. And there are times where it's really beautiful, where you have like the Gen Zs are teaching the X's are retiring, but they're teaching them how to use technology, and I think it's really sweet when they're kind of helping each other. But you also see times when the generational differences are showing up and impacting. Like, look at the way communication, right? I think our Gen Zs really dislike text. They don't like to be cold, whereas people from older generations, they just want to talk to you, right? They don't want to.
Payah lagi wah texting atau.
Exactly. So then when you have those differences, it's interesting. They might not always jive.
Yeah, it's true. It's so different, which is cool. I in the beginning, I used to think, anu ni young generation so manja, But now I'm thinking that they've got something,
Absolutely, and that's the best. When you see each other's strengths, I think we're so much stronger when we're a united team, and despite all of our differences, kind of help each other, and we see each other's strengths. I think that's really
they want the full life, the balance, the actual balance of everything. That's why I feel like if a young generation is paired with the old generation punya leadership, kadang it clashes, right? But heads a bit because the young one they kind of understand this is what I want, but why can't I get it? There's a big like, why so uphill? You know, that's what I felt as well. Sure. but yeah, it's that kind of like they have a different view on everything. So if you're a boss and you're of a older generation and you have people younger under you, that is a lot of cases is like that. You're gonna have to get with it, understand how it's like for this group. If you're gonna pull out the best from them,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get in their wavelength. Terpaksa ba, huh?
Yes.
They're not gonna live the way you were living.
I also think the times have changed where we're
Absolutely.
living in a different world. The
Mhm.
world that we grew up in no longer exists.
Okay.
So we now also need to be agile and kind of also get with the program.
I know, like there's so much technology as well.
Yes.
I think, right? But yeah, it's fun. So, for me, is there any last advice you want to give for our leaders out there who are probably at a cusp? Like you have people who are working so good because they're older generation, and then you have the younger generation, which probably they're struggling with. Or I don't know, whatever. The challenges of leadership. What's your final?
So 3 things. Ask your teams, how do you feel and how do you feel at work? And then number 2,
Ask, but be prepared to listen to the answer.
number 2 is listen.
Oh.
Number 2 is really listen, right? Don't be defensive.
Yes.
Be ready. They might not always be saying kind, positive things.
Yeah.
Be ready to take it, right?
They may let you have it.
Remember, we
right?
have 2 ears, 1 mouth. So use it in that proportion.
Okay.
And 3, be open. Be open to changing things up, to trying new things, to doing things a little bit differently. At the end of the day, it's also about your niyat, your intention. Set your intentions to build a happy, healthy, strong team, that trust each other. And then I would say, go with it. And all the very best. I think leadership is not an easy journey.
Yeah.
But remember, it's growth over perfection. And I would also like to wish all the listeners Selamat Berpuasa and thank you for listening in.
Thank you. That's good advice. If you ask me, advice for leaders after hearing clients who are struggling and suffering, only one. Sadarkan diri, okay? That's about it. Like you're also working, they're working, you're working. Sadarkan diri, you're human as well, like
I love it, Heidi. Be human. Be human.
Yeah, like just don't be crazy, stop it. Yeah, because people will love to work with a great leader. Everyone they want a great leader. So if you're a leader, you gotta have no choice but to be great. Like improve, continuously improve. I think. Okay, so this has been great. I hope the listeners listening in, the leader ka, the one suffering with some monster leader ka, can gain something out of this, and I hope you can come back for other topics.
Absolutely, happy to.
Okay, cool. All right. So, okay, thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.